So for many, the basis of right and wrong comes right down to this: as long as no one gets hurt. That is the new standard for whether something is acceptable or not acceptable, right or wrong, politically correct or not political. I mean, it goes on and on. We are in a series at Life Talks on modern day nonsensical proverbs that a lot of people spout. My name is Dan. I'm with Ben. We're the teaching pastors at Life Fellowship in Cornelius, North Carolina. That's metropolitan Charlotte. Ben, it's good to be with you today.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
enjoying, boy, we're getting a lot of feedback on this series.
Oh, yeah. I've heard a lot.
I'm hearing, getting emails and so forth, some suggestions and so forth. And in fact, somebody suggested this one to us: as long as no one gets hurt. Have you heard anybody say that? And what is the context of that?
Yeah, I mean, we hear this a lot when it comes to a lot of framed around the sexual ethics of today, right? We heard this a lot 20 years ago I guess 25 years ago, when homosexuality was really becoming more, wanting to become more mainstream, more acceptable. And it was, the whole idea was, hey, as long as no one's getting hurt, you could let people do what they want in their own bedroom. Like that was just the
as long
idea.
as everyone's consenting.
Is the consenting adults, and no one's getting hurt. Like what? Who cares? And it's interesting how that's been the, that was the mantra for so long. And what used to be like you have to accept it now is like you have to celebrate it. You know what I mean? It's like it's gone a long way. But that was the starting point was, hey, as long as no one's getting hurt. But the idea is, well, what's our measurement for hurt? What's our measurement for, there's a subjective means there that just, how do you measure that? And so, and even that whole idea, as long as no one's getting hurt, doesn't mean that that's necessarily right or wrong to do. Right.
Well, let's start off with just a 1-2 punch on it.
Yeah.
What about this statement is wrong? Why is this a statement that if you have a biblical worldview, you're likely to reject it? And then follow up with that is, what should be the standard?
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, I think many times because we live in a materialistic, humanistic world, we only think in the terms of materialism or the idea of the physical. So when someone says, as long as no one's getting hurt, they think of physically. As long as no one's physically getting harmed, then what's the point? But what we forget is we are more than just cells. We are more than just our bodies. We have souls. We have spirits. And I think there's not just physical harm that we should care about. There's also emotional harm, right? There's our emotions involved, and then there's spiritual components as well. The idea of are we harming our relationship with God? Are we harming just our soul, the image of God in us? So, I mean, I don't think we can just say, I mean, the biggest thing that's wrong with this statement is just looking at ourselves as pure material bodies and just saying, hey, I can do something as long as I'm not hurting anybody physically. But many of these things are affecting us, especially these sexual acts, have way more impact on us emotionally and spiritually than they do physically. But they still have an impact on us physically. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the amount of diseases, the amount of health problems that people have, and I'm not just talking about homosexual activity. I'm talking about promiscuous heterosexual activity.
BDSM, all kinds of, even pedophilia or incest.
There's things that happen to the human body the more that you live outside of the lane of righteousness of sexual ethics. And so I think it does harm you. You don't see it immediately. Yeah. And so I think that those are the things I think that are wrong with that statement.
Yeah, and I would add to that, I think there's also kind of a patchwork of wrong philosophy that at least connects and sometimes overlaps. Within this philosophy, there are other sub-philosophies or connecting philosophies. We've talked about a couple of them. Who am I to say?
Right.
Or as long as everyone is a consenting adult, or as long as everyone consents.
Yeah.
Even the adult part has been dropped off on that. The end justifies the means. Mm-hmm. So if the end is pleasure, if the end is self-satisfaction, all these different things, then the means whereby we get to that pleasure, that self-satisfaction, or that fulfillment, or that experimentation, or that experience is okay. Again, as long as everybody consents,
Right,
nobody gets
right,
hurt.
right.
And then if you were to raise an objection, the way you knock down the objection, or you knock down the traditional morality, say, well, who are you to say, or who am I to say?
Right. So it's actually the problem of judgment. Like, well, who's going to make the call on who gets hurt or not?
Yeah.
Is it you? Is it me? Or is it God? Like,
and in today's culture, it is a greater crime to be perceived to be judgmental
Yes.
than it is to commit the crime.
Yes. Yes. I think that's the thing that you just brought up a great point, because I think who are you to say is very closely related to, as long as no one's getting hurt, because that requires a judgment call. And the idea of who gets hurt, this is really big right now with the trans issue with young people,
Mm-hmm.
right? This idea that children can somehow determine for themselves who they are, and they can have these body-altering surgeries at the ages of 12 and 13, sometimes even younger, because
Mm-hmm.
they know what they need. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, whoa, time out. Like, who's making these judgment calls? People who are not even, their frontal lobe is even developing. It's unbelievable.
The same people who thinks that eating ice cream instead of vegetables is okay, right? Or skipping school or whatever.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ludicrous to that. But it's also just kind of this general perspective, I think, is that we really, and it's kind of in a Western perspective, but it's also as old as is Satan and Adam. We don't want someone telling us what to do. I think when it comes right down to it, it's just sheer rebellion.
Yes.
Who am I to say? As long as I want to do it, as long as no one gets hurt, we work to justify getting our own way to be able to perform our own agenda.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that we do this individually, you might be sitting there and be like, yeah, get them, Ben. Yeah, you tell those rotten sinners over there to don't say that. But the reality is we do this to ourselves all the time. We have self-justifying thoughts to ourselves when it comes to our own compromises of decisions we do for our own lives. So this isn't that bad. Like that's the way that we could probably rephrase it if it's a self-justifying thought of compromising. It's this watching this movie with these scenes or with this content, it's not really that bad. This isn't going to harm me. This is just it's just a movie, or it's just a show, or
it's not reality.
It's not reality. Those are the kinds of compromises I think we can make as believers, to say it's not really harming me because it's virtual or it's on a screen and I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? So I think we have these self-justifying thoughts that where we make compromises to standards of righteousness, and because we do that, we allow things into our lives that really do harm us. It's one of those things where you wake up and you're like, well, wait, how did I get here? That there was harm done to me. There has been an effect on my life by making these compromises. It's just the things that we just don't see overnight. They're not these drastic things to us. It's like, oh man, over time I see how this has affected me. There's a great illustration. There's a book I read by I'm forgetting his name right now. Michael Cusick, and it's called Surfing for God. It's a great book on the battle of pornography that many people struggle with today. And he tells this amazing story. It's an illustration in it. And the whole idea was there was this person that made a deal with this bird that said, hey, I'll give you, instead of, you're trying to find a worm, I'll just give you a worm for free, but you have to give me one of your feathers. And the bird thought, oh, this is a pretty good deal. I got tons of feathers. And so he plucks off a feather and gives it and gets a worm, and he just gets used to doing this. The bird didn't notice until one day he looks and he doesn't have any feathers left. And it's just over as a slow progression over time. It had an impact, and that's what we do. We make these compromises like, hey, as long as no one's getting hurt, but do you really understand what that your definition of hurt is? And you make these small compromises, these self-justifying thoughts, allowing yourself to do these things. And you might not notice the change that's happening in the moment, but if you keep going down that road and keep compromising those standards of righteousness, you're going to wake up one day and you're not going to be able to recognize yourself. And you're going to realize the harm I had, maybe it was like 0.5% that harmed me in this area. But you do that 100 times, you're 50% of where you used to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's that's a issue when it comes to this statement that we can fool ourselves in many ways.
So what is the biblical standard? If you have a biblical worldview, obviously there has to be a way whereby we ascertain what is right and wrong. And to us, obviously, it's going to be, well, we'd say the Word of God, right? I mean, that's the right response. But do you see most Christians observing that? Is that where we're at?
I think many times we ask the wrong questions. So I'll give you an example. I grew up in independent Baptist circles with the purity culture thing, like in the 80s and 90s. That was kind of the big thing, the true love waits, banquets, and making those purity rings and those kinds of things. And I remember so many youth conferences I would go to, and they would have these seminars on dating and Christian dating, and invariably every single time there would be this, whether it was a breakout session or someone would ask the question, how far is too far?
Always.
Oh, do you remember this?
Oh, absolutely. I was teaching high school at the time.
This was all over the place. At least we were asking that question. I don't even know if kids ask that question today or if they even care what that question is today. But how far? The whole idea was, how close can we get to the like? What can we do physically with a person of the opposite sex without it crossing a line of where it's like, oh, we've sinned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was when the phrase technical virginity.
Yeah,
started
and so I think this idea of how I'm relating it to this day, as long as we're not getting hurt. Why are we thinking about in the ways of like, well, as long as no one's getting hurt, as opposed to thinking of idea of healing, the idea of wholeheartedness, the idea of restoration, the idea of like, it's not a matter of am I harming anyone as much as it is how am I bringing healing and hope to the world. It shouldn't be, how far is too far with my girlfriend? It should be, how do I live the holiest life possible right now while I'm in this dating relationship? Instead of looking for where the line is, look for where, go towards the person of Jesus. And I think this idea, as long as no one's getting hurt is what's the lowest, it's almost like, what's the lowest common denominator thing I can
lowest
do
standard I can have.
to be a Christian and still kind of go, that's what's so wrong. Instead of looking like, no, I want to be like Jesus. I want to follow him. I want to love him. I want to be close to him. I want to live a life of holiness because out of love, out of joy, not out of I don't want to do anything that bad. And I just think that's where so many, I grew up in that culture, in that Christian culture. I think so many Christians live their lives that way. What do I have to avoid of doing really bad things as opposed to saying, man, let's live the greatest righteous life we can possibly live. Let's bring healing to the world as opposed to just thinking, let's hope no one gets hurt. That I think is the biggest issue that Christians need to be thinking about.
Yeah. What do you say when you're having a conversation in an environment where you may be the only Christian or you may be the minority or whatever, and somebody does pull out that, well, I don't believe your Bible. I don't believe in absolute truth. I don't believe. What is the believer's response at that moment in terms of simply being salt and light?
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's a number of things you say. Well, if you can point out the sketchiness of their own standard, if you're just coming up with your own standard of what hurts people or not, then there's a lot of people that are going to get hurt. Because if your standard is, well, I think this behavior doesn't hurt people, but this person says, well, it does hurt me, then you're just, there's no objective standard of righteousness. And so what happens is people are going to get hurt because people are saying, well, I don't care about that, whereas you do. So I think you can point out just the very logical way that living by that mantra and doing those things will invariably hurt people because your standard is not perfect and my standard is not perfect. So we can agree that if I live by that proverb, the chances of me hurting somebody else will be very high, right? So we can't even live by that. But I also would want to point out to this, well, before you make that judgment call of whether or not that's harmful or not, have you talked to someone that's been down that road before? Again, this is general revelation. I'm not saying like, you don't believe in the authority of God, but you can do your own work of using logic. yeah, you would say, well, if I live out this life, if I live out this lifestyle choice, yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt anyone. Well, have you talked to someone that's lived that lifestyle choice? I could introduce you to someone who lived that for 20 years or went down that road and would tell you the harm, the hurt that they experience as well as the other people. So before you are able to really know whether something is harmful or not, can you talk to someone who's done that behavior, who's walked that road? And so dealing with a person who doesn't necessarily believe in the Word of God, who lives by this mantra, I think you can still use logic and reason to make them question the validity of this argument.
Yeah. I would add to that also, just never underestimate the power of a personal conviction or personal testimony.
Totally.
The fact is that living biblically in today's culture is an isolated journey. It is a journey that you may not have many people joining you in. And in fact, you may look around and many others who claim to be Christians are walking in a completely different direction than you are.
Yeah.
At some point, each of us has to determine, what are we going to accept with truth? And are we going to live by that truth and be willing to live that truth, whether or not anybody else joins us or not?
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I find a little concerning in the way we process things about holiness and right and wrong, is that many of us feel like this is a group consensus type of a posture. But no, truth has already been established by God. The Bible says forever His word is settled in heaven and in earth. It's settled. And our pursuit is not to see what everybody else is doing, but what would God have me to do? And then whether or not I'm willing to yield to that, to submit to that. I think also a lot of us get very frustrated trying to influence others, which we should. The Scripture tells us we're to be salt and light. But I can't change anybody's mind.
No.
That's a spiritual thing that
right.
only the Holy Spirit can do. However, when I live right, when I stand for what is right, when I refuse to compromise the values that I hold, not because I'm a good person, but because I'm pursuing a good God, when I provide that model, it gives the Holy Spirit opportunity to show the contrast in other people's lives. And so that's why I say, and I think Scripture says, don't hide what you do under a bushel. At the same time, don't take your candle and try to burn their house down.
Right.
There is this line that we have to, where we're not ashamed of what we do, but also we're willing to do what we do for the right reasons, regardless of whether anybody else or not joins us. And so I think the earlier in our life, the earlier in our journey, we can get to a point of resolution where we're going to live based on what God thinks, not what anybody else thinks, what God's word has said, not what the consensus is or politics says. It will be a day when we're going to be able to make the most rapid progress in our journey of holiness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's so good. And again, this is the very statement of this, when it comes to, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone, it's a very me-focused statement. I mean, it just doesn't scream of, I think I'm thinking of other people. It's thinking of, what can I get away with? And I think that's something we have to point out. So, yeah, I think this is one of those statements that is easy to debunk. It exposes our selfishness. It exposes our self-centeredness. And I think as a Christian, we should be agents who bring life and healing to the world, not just looking to say, hey, as long as no one's getting hurt, then it's okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's another proverb that we want to take a look at. Let me ask you this question, listener. Are you examining the psychobabble? Are you examining the trite phrases, epigrams, the you only live onces, and the who am I to say phraseology that is part of our culture? Be discerning. The active mind is the questioning mind. God calls us to wisdom and discernment. We have a responsibility to think through our actions, to stand for truth, to make decisions, and to live independent of where everybody else is going, but completely dependent upon God and His truth. So this has been another episode of Life Talks. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.